Welcome back, guys, to Balls Deep, episode 6. We're joined today by Steve Garcia, a featherweight who's 16-5, currently on a 4-fight KO win streak, and is looking to keep that streak going on September 7th when he faces off against Kyle Nelson. Steve, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you for being here. You know, you're actually our first active UFC fighter. We've been
Oh, no
interviewing a ton of
way.
Ultimate Fighter guys, but you're our first real UFC signed fighting in the UFC guy. So it's an honor to have you on the show. It's really
Let's
pretty awesome.
go. All right, cool. Number one, baby.
Number one, number one. And you're also number one in another thing. You know, you have the most active KO win streak in the UFC. How do you feel about that?
I had no idea about it until DC told me about it. So when he told me, I was like, wow, really? You never expect to hold a record like that in the UFC. So it's something that like it's pretty cool once you think about. But I try not to let it like get to my head or anything because I got more to give. So yeah, just at a quick thought, that's awesome. You know what I mean? I think other people around me that are close to me are super pumped about that. But yeah, man, I see it as a blessing. It's cool, but I got more to give. So September 7th, I'm going for number 5, man.
And what is it like training? I'm going to get into talking about like training with your father, but what's it like training at such a great gym like Jackson Wink?
Dude, when you have the best coaches in the world, uh, the training's top notch, man, and it's been like that forever. And it's kind of crazy because like when I came into the gym, man, just everybody was just like a killer in there, and we still got plenty of killers and stuff, but everybody knew those killers. You know what I mean? And you're seeing a lot of them kind of just retire. You're seeing a lot of them kind of like, kind of at the end of their career. I was actually pretty bummed when Michelle, retired because I've been watching her and following her for a long time, and she became a great friend of mine. And it's kind of sad to see, but man, these guys are, to me, they're legends. You know what I mean? And now it's cool because like, the way she kind of explained it was just like she's like, "We're giving you the torch, Steve. Like, go for it." So I was like, it's cool, man. It's really, really cool. Um, and they still come back to the gym and they'll come and help us out. But when you have Greg and Wink there, the proof's in the pudding, man. They know what they're talking about, and we got a whole new lineup of killers, coming up, and we have some in the mix right now still too. But yeah, we have some solid fighters for sure, and we have this like rebuilding of new generations coming up too. So Jackson Wink is a good place to be at, and to top it off with the cherry on top, you have the best coach in the world.
And actually, when I was talking to Greg Jackson in my first interview, we spoke about how he had this great golden generation, but now he's looking forward into this new next generation for Jackson Wink. You're kind of like the front runner of that generation. You have a lot of guys that are kind of on the rise, but you've kind of been involved. You've got 5 fights already in the UFC, 6 fights already in the UFC. You've won 5 of them, and now you're on this 4-win streak. How does it feel to kind of be like, you saw these guys when you first came in as kind of like you were looking up to them. Now you might have guys looking up to yourself.
Yeah, you kind of start to see the shift. You know what I mean? And I guess it kind of threw me for a loop a little bit. You know what I mean? Because I've always had someone that I've always looked up to in that gym. When you have like people like Holly and Michelle, and you had Carlos, then you had, I mean, the Bones is still active, but he's not really at our gym anymore. He's at a different type of Jackson's. But you have all these guys that are just, man, just, the guys that I looked up to, and they all beat me up, and I go through the ranks and stuff like that, and now I felt like, in a sense, like I'm somewhat kind of who they were to me. You know what I mean? Or I am who they were, back then. You know what I mean? So now I'm that, taking that role on for the newer generation coming up, and it's interesting to be in that position because I've always seen myself as the guy looking up to, them, if that makes sense. And so, I feel like a little bit of pressure. I definitely want to set a good example. I want to show them what hard work will do, and how it pays off. There's no easy road to where I'm trying to get. I got a lot to accomplish, and I'm blessed. I've accomplished a lot. I think we're going on our on our eighth fight in the UFC, and but people don't know like what it took to get here, and it took me 12 years to get to the UFC, and I think I'm 17 years in total since I was 15 years old. So man, it's a long journey, but well worth it now.
And you've bounced around through those 17 years, whether it's Bellator or LFA or Dana White Contender Series and now the UFC. But, one person that stuck by your side is your dad throughout it. How motivating is that when you're in a fight and you look at your corner and you see your dad?
My dad actually keeps it pretty low key in the corner. Every once in a while, like if it's something pretty important, he'll say something. Uh, but he knows his place. You know what I mean? And I'm not to discredit like his knowledge of the game, but when, like I said, you're sitting next to Greg Jackson and Mike Winkeljohn, they're gonna say what needs to be said. And my dad is just watching it happen as it goes on. If my dad has something, he'll actually say it, but he stays pretty quiet. My dad is really um he's the guy that tortures me during camp. You know what I mean? He's the guy that puts me through my rounds and literally just tries to get me super tired so that like I am very very comfortable about being tired in these fights. And if we end it short, then it's a blessing. But yeah, man, he really stepped up and he really helped me. As far as my conditioning, my strength, and then he really really just like um, he steps up during the weight cut. And for me, that's kind of like where I feel bad for him because now that I'm a dad, I never want to see my son go through the things that I've had to experience and go through. But I put my dad through that. You know what I mean? And it's kind of tough. I know it's very tough for him. Some of our trips to the emergency room or to the hospital or whatever the case is, and I just can't imagine what he's going through. Um, but you know what, man? He sticks out by my side, and when I tell him, he listens to me for the most part. When I tell him, like, look, man, I was like, I know I look like I'm about to die, but just leave me alone, and I'm gonna keep going until I make it. And sometimes, like, if I feel like I'm done, he's like, Steve, you got it. You got to look more in you. I know you do. So it's nice having my dad there, and he's been my dad since day one, and I think I think anybody would be happy to have someone like my dad in the corner. And I'm just blessed to have him.
And can you talk to me about at the end of your last fight, you actually said that your dad told you to get violent, and then you came out and you got a knockout win. He obviously throws in a little bit of that in there. He brings that fire for you. Do you think you'd be where you're at right now without him?
No, no, because he's helped me, in more ways than just being the strength and conditioning coach. Obviously, he's still my dad. You know what I mean? So if there's anybody that is always going to look out for my best interest, it's always going to be my dad. And I'm not saying that like every dad's the amazing dad or the cases, but I'm grateful to have the one that I have because he will have my best interest at heart. If he thinks like, he's like, Steve, this is not a good move. Like he will literally tell me because it doesn't benefit him in any way. You know what I mean? He wants the best for me, and and I always look to him for advice. I always look to him, and like if I have a question, like he's the first person I call. Like even if they give me, let's say like I'm waiting for a call, on a matchup, he's the first person I call. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey man, I was like, look, this is what they're trying to do. Take a look at them. You know what I mean? And tell me what you think because I know he's gonna be honest with me. If he's like, man, he says this is a good fight, or you know what, Steve, like you've had a hard whatever couple weeks. This might not be the best idea right now. Like we don't really have those moments, but like he's a guy that's gonna be real with me, and then I'll go talk to my coaches, and then usually we all kind of like huddle up and we just talk about it. So I never make an actual decision without their input because I really do take that into consideration always. And like going into this fight with Nelson, like coming off a fight with Troy, I pretty much came out unscathed. I mean, I had a few bumps, and so that's the reason why we took it. But it's not so much the fight that you really deal with; it's the repercussions and everything that comes along with just like a harsh like 8 to 10 week camp. And I really just beat myself up with it. So they wanted to make sure I was good. I took a week off like right after that fight, and they asked me how I felt, and now we're fighting because I was like, you know what, man, I was like, we can do this. I was like, I can push hard another 5 weeks. Luckily, the weight's low, so the weight's not even necessarily a big factor, and we can really focus on the training and really just zero in on this next opponent we got.
After your fourth knockout in a row, did you expect to maybe fight a ranked opponent, or did that you just wanted to get in the octagon again before the end of the year?
I wanted him to be ranked because, like, ultimately, like, I'm trying to get to the top. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm proving myself. Like, I don't. It's just weird. Like, I see, both sides of the coin, I guess, and I don't understand why that's not happening. Like, I would totally understand if I went into all these fights and I was barely winning. Like, if I was squeaking by with split decisions or whatever the case is. But I'm trying to make my cases pretty clear. Like, when I get in there, it's gonna be a fist fight, and it's gonna be usually exciting. Um, and man, it's gonna be brutal. It's gonna be violent in there. And after so long, man, like, how much longer can you deny me? You know what I mean? Because I'm not a big yapper. You know what I mean? We'll have these conversations, and I'm happy to have them, but I'm not here to stir the pot. You know what I mean? As far as with my mouth, but I promise you, I'll piss off some of these fighters that are at the top, and they might see I'm unfit. They might see that I may be unworthy. Who knows? I don't know. But what they can say is that Steve's you know not doing what he's supposed to be doing. Like, you signed a dotted line to go out there and fight. I go out there and fight. I give it everything I got, and I've been finishing people. So that's where I stand, and I think that is enough to build a case to get someone in the top 15.
Who do you think you'd want? I mean, I know you called out Dan Ige, but he was signed. He just signed with someone else. Maybe like a 15, like Edson Barbosa, maybe in your future. Do you think?
A lot of people like that matchup. I don't really care. There and it's not to take away that anybody in the division is not good. It's almost opposite. Like, everybody in the division is so freaking good that, like, it is like, bro, like, it's gonna be hell for me anyways. Like, the way that I approach a lot of these guys, and it really comes down to your mindset, is that they are the next biggest monster in my way. You know what I mean? And I hold them like that. You know what I mean? When I fought Choi, I'm like, bro, this guy is like the scariest monster in front of me, and if I don't beat him, he's taking away everything I worked hard for. And that's how I approach it. Also, I'm in a sense, I'm almost training my mind for the top 15. You know what I mean? So if it's Barboza, if it's Mitchell, if it's, I don't know who else is in there off the top of my head, but I picked DJ because he was supposed to fight on the card that I was currently fighting on, and a lot kind of went on with that situation. I'd still love that fight because I think you got two scrappers that are willing to just bring it, and that's why I really like that matchup. I'd still want that matchup, but yeah, man, you give me someone like Cater, you give me someone like Barboza, or you give me someone like who else is in there? Sudoku. I don't even know if he's in the top 15 anymore, but there's a lot of quality names in there that will definitely elevate me further into the rankings. But ultimately, I want a number on my name.
I think you're gonna get it pretty soon. I think I do like the Bryce Mitchell matchup also. I think he's and I don't want to hate on him. I just think he's on his way out, and he's got that number by his name that you want. And I think your paths might cross in the future, and that would be a good fight for you to move into those rankings. Can you talk to me about the difference between, you fought a lot in the Apex. It's kind of where you are for some reason. I feel like you should be in the crowds. But what's the difference? You have fought in the crowds before, but what's the difference between fighting at the Apex and fighting at an arena? And which one do you prefer?
Well, I'm kind of with you. I do want a crowd. You know what I mean? So after this, like, I want a crowd. People need to start seeing what I'm doing. That aren't just like a diehard UFC fan. You know what I mean? Because I have all the respect for those guys because they give me my job too. You know what I mean? Like, they they're loyal to UFC, and I'm part of that organization now, and I get to fight and be part of it, and uh, I'm blessed to have those guys. But I need the people that are just gonna go out there, and it's tickets, and yeah, they're UFC fans, but the biggest one that they want to see is the headliner because they don't know anybody else. Well, I'm like, you're probably gonna get your bang for your buck, so you're gonna probably see more fights than just the main event, and so you need to watch me. You know what I mean? So that's why I want to go in front of people and actually fight. But as far as competing at the Apex, it almost seems like it's becoming like kind of routine for me. You know what I mean? I almost kind of feel like the Apex King. You know what I mean? I'm undefeated there. I'm 5-0 there. If you include the contender series, so I feel really, really. I don't want to say I don't want to say comfortable because there's nothing comfortable about going to the cage, and you look across and there's another fighter that's been training for weeks on end to hurt you. You know what I mean? It's not there's not a comfortable That's not a comfortable feeling. Uh, but you know what, man? Like I know what to do. I know what to expect. Uh, I know I have the PI there if I need it. It's almost comforting in that sense. You know, I'm like, I got a low injury, finger or something like that. I go to the PI. They're gonna work on me. I got the PI cage. I'm always in the PI cage when I'm in Vegas. I know a couple people or a couple of gyms like outside of Vegas that I go to cut weight or whatever the case is. So I'm not like, with the rest of the whole freaking card in the sauna in the ape or in the PI. So, yeah, man. And then like it's just like a one flight away from home for me, and I love that. So like I can come, obviously I fly out early and stuff like that, but I'll just take one flight back home, and I'm home within an hour. You know what I mean? It's convenient for me. When you go to like out of the country or you go into somewhere like I fought in Miami and you had to catch two flights. Like a full day type of thing, and especially after a fight, man. Like even when you win, like you're limping through the airport or like you're busted up and people are looking at you weird and stuff, and it just comes with the territory. But yeah, man, I feel like there's pros and cons to both of them. I'm benefiting off of the ones that I've been fighting at the Apex. I was blessed to get the co-main last fight and just kind of fell into my lap. I believe this next one should be because I know Nelson was originally lined up to fight Calvin Cater, and so Cater's out, Steve Garcia's in, so I'm hoping that they're just going to keep it there, and I think I bring enough excitement to hold that position.
It's definitely disappointing. I feel like you've been a highlight reel like consistently, and it is. I recently started this page, so I've been watching the fight nights more often. So I've actually watched a lot of your fights, but it's a shame that not a lot of people have. I feel like that's where you get the most attention. Obviously, you have all those eyes on you. As an athlete myself, it's hard to perform in front of a crowd. Obviously, do you think that getting like you said, kind of comfortable in the apex might become an issue in the future when you see a big crowd?
No, not necessarily, because I fought, I've always had a crowd usually. It's actually, I had to get used to fighting the Apex without a crowd, which took me a second. But I fought in Bellator and we've always had a crowd. I've been the main event, here locally several times. Um, so having people there just added energy for me. You know what I mean? And obviously growing up, you know what I mean? I've gone into, other people's backyards and enemy territory, and I've been booed before. I've silenced crowds. I've done almost everything that you can do in the sport. That's not necessarily going to throw me off. Obviously, the magnitude of being in the UFC, maybe even headlining a card like with the audience, maybe that's something that I don't expect. But man, like I don't I try not to like make it bigger than what it is, if that makes sense. Because when you do that, then yes, like the pressure is definitely heightened, and there's no reason to do that. You know what I mean? When people are depending on you to save the card or to make it sell or whatever the case is, like I mean, I've never necessarily experienced it at the level that the UFC is, but bro, like when you fight locally, like here in Albuquerque, ticket sales are everything. You know what I mean? So if you're the main event, they expect you to sell. You know what I mean? And I'm like, nah, dude, I got you. I got you. Like I have a lot of family here, and this is my hometown, so people will tune in, and they're very supportive of the MMA community here, and they've watched me grow up and stuff. So it's a good deal, but it's nothing that I've never not experienced.
And luckily, with technology, a lot of people can get their eyes on with either after the fight, live through ESPN Plus, all that. I wanted to talk to you about some pretty awesome comments on YouTube you were actually getting in your post-fight interview clip. A guy said that you were the Ngannou of the featherweight division with your power. I like to talk to the fighters about what their like signature move is. One guy's is like the anaconda choke, another's rear naked choke. Your signature move is just knocking guys out. When did you kind of like find this power? Because early in your career, you had a crazy streak of knockouts also. So it's kind of always been your thing. When did you really discover that, all right, you have the power to knock guys out?
I think like now it's been a little bit uh, more current for me to like just really, really sit on my shots uh, now than I've ever have. So I feel like when I hit you, it really, really does damage. You know what I mean? Back in the day, so and I think this really comes with like my training. Was I used to fight a lot of people that were a lot bigger than me because I used to be 35, or believe it or not, and I've had several fights, almost probably like 25 plus at 35. So I was always like the smaller guy. Yeah, I was big for the division, but like the people I trained with were always bigger than me, and I had like this attitude where I'd watch people and I would look a liking to Dominic Cruz's style because I didn't take damage. You know what I mean? I was like in and out, hitting angles. Definitely like a hit and run type of mentality. Like I'm gonna hit these big guys and then I'm out. You know what I mean? And I was still able to finish, but it took me a lot longer, and it just was definitely like a hard puzzle to crack. And so I feel like I've God given ability, with my I guess my left hand. You know what I mean? I'm very dominant, and when I hit you, when I land, I can capitalize on it. You know what I mean? And Greg says it all the time that like finishing is also an art. You just like don't just knock someone out, and they might still have the wits. Like, can you finish them? You know what I mean? Like if you're trying to figure out, let's reverse the roles. If you're down, like, can someone finish you? Like, how are you gonna like survive? You know what I mean? And if someone is good at that, that's also a skill set too. You know what I mean? Like weathering the storm and those type of things. So I feel like I'm able to like put my shots together. I feel like I can really sit on my shots. I have a regiment that I do to really add to the natural, I think, power that I have. So yeah, man, when I touch you and there's no blood, I'm kind of surprised, but I know if I just keep hitting you, there's gonna be something. So I just keep doing that.
Last question, Steve. Prediction, September 7th. What do you got?
What do you think?
It's got to be KO. I'm really asking what round.
Yeah. Yeah, man. You're fighting tougher guys. They're harder and harder to put away. If I had to guess, man, I'm going for the second and third round. If I can catch him, if I can catch him in the first, obviously, hell yeah. But as the fight progresses, I do believe that at some point, I don't want to seem like I'm overconfident or like cocky, but I feel like it's almost inevitable as long as the fight is going the way in my head that it should go. It's almost inevitable that I'm gonna connect, and it's gonna hurt, and I'm gonna find a way to finish him. And if he still survives, then kudos to you, bud. Kudos to you, because I'm training to take your head off.
I wanted to ask one more because I really was looking in, and I'm interested in this. I know I said the last question, but Kyle on ESPN app, whatever it is listed as a kickboxer. Obviously, he sees your past 4 fights. He knows the knockout. He knows those punches are coming. Do you think he might test your wrestling at all?
Yeah. I'm not saying he can't kickbox. You know what I mean? He's I've already dissected this guy already, and I kind of have an idea what to expect. That's the thing, that like when you the more fights you have in the UFC, it's all filmed, so we all can watch each other. And man, like depending on how good you are, look at John Jones. John Jones literally just like dissects people for hours, and I've talked to him. You know what I mean? He just kind of like gave me some pointers on how to do it. Maybe it's benefited me, in several ways. And then his coaches are my coaches. You know what I mean? So like I got that too. So that dude, like, he'll watch the same move over and over and over again. He'll put it in like slow mo, like he wants to know exactly every move. And that's not fully my style, but I need to watch you enough to read you, make reads, and see habits and blah blah blah. All everybody has jobs that they got to do. That's just part of what I do, and obviously what we and Greg see. Um, but yeah, Ben, I think he's gonna. If at least if I connect and it just hurts, I have a feeling he might shoot. That's normally majority of the cases when I fight. You're a striker until you get hit. It's almost like the Mike Tyson thing. Everybody has a plan until they get hit in the face. That's exactly how fighting is. You know what I mean? Um, and that'd probably be the smartest thing to do because sometimes, like for me, I'm the dummy that gets punched, and I'm like, oh, I'm going forward still. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man. I think he'll shoot. I think we'll be able to land some good stuff. Uh, I don't want to see him overconfident or overeager to go out there and do what I know I can do. Um, you got to stay humble within yourself because, man, I was like, if I don't, God will. So I'll, you know, I'll just take whatever I can do, work and train as hard as I can to go out there and give you guys a great show.
All right, Steve. Well, I'm super excited to watch you fight on September 7th. Thank you so much for talking with me today. It's been awesome.
Appreciate you, Tommy. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a good time.
Thank you. Thank you.